Have you ever wondered why a massive global company like Apple rarely runs out of new iPhones on launch day, but, your local neighborhood bakery routinely runs out of their best croissants like at like 9 in the morning?
Right. And people usually think the difference is just scale or, having a trillion-dollar market cap.
Exactly. They think it's just about money, but it's not. The real difference is actually this hidden organizational engine. It's a framework that forces entirely different departments to agree on a single version of reality.
Yeah, it's honestly the ultimate antidote to corporate chaos. Like when you look at companies that scale without completely imploding, they're relying on this exact framework to connect their highest level financial goals right down to the grid of the factory floor.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack that exact engine, sales and operations planning, or S&OP for short.
It's a big one.
It really is. And whether you are, leading a boardroom meeting or managing a supply chain, or if you're just intensely curious about how giant companies keep their internal gears from grinding to a halt, S&OP is your secret shortcut. It gives you enterprise-wide visibility.
And to get us there today, we're using excerpts and diagrams from the APCS CPI Module 2 playbook.
Yeah, which is basically the gold standard for how supply chain professionals structure their entire world.
It is, and it's a fascinating world to explore, honestly, because it addresses a universal business problem that you've probably experienced in your own career: silos.
Oh, the dreaded silos.
Exactly. It's that classic situation where marketing is launching this massive campaign and sales is promising immediate delivery to everyone, and then manufacturing is just completely blindsided.
Right, because no one actually told them to buy more raw materials.
Exactly. So let's look at the core of what this engine actually does, the fundamental principles behind S&OP.
Okay, let's do it. At a high level, the text presents it as this grand balancing act between the demand side of a business and the supply side. But, those are pretty big abstract terms.
They are. So let's ground them a bit.
Yeah.
On the demand side, you basically have the customer's appetite.
Okay.
This includes your sales forecasts, your actual booked orders, and overarching market trends. It's basically the what we hope to sell category.
That makes sense.
Right. And then on the supply side, you have the physical reality of your business. So this is your existing inventory, the purchase orders you have out with your own suppliers, and your actual resource capacity.
Meaning, do you physically possess the machinery in the factory space?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the human labor, too.
Yeah.
Do you have the people to actually build what your sales team just promised to the customer?
I want to visualize this. It sounds like S&OP is essentially the fulcrum on a seesaw.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. You have a highly motivated sales team sitting on one end, and they're just eager to sell everything to everyone immediately. And then on the other end, you have manufacturing, who typically wants to produce a single product very continuously at a highly predictable pace just to keep costs down.
Right. They hate surprises.
Exactly. So S&OP sits right in the middle, keeping these two opposing forces from crashing into the dirt.
That visual captures the dynamic perfectly. Because without that fulcrum, those two sides operate in total isolation.
Total silos.
Right. And you run into the classic nightmare where operations runs the factory 24/7 to build up inventory for a product that sales already knows is being phased out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that leads to massive obsolescence. You're just burning cash to build things destined for the dumpster.
Which is obviously bad.
Very bad.
Yeah.
So the principal mandate of S&OP is to prevent that. It ensures your production plans are completely consistent with your high-level business plan. You literally force sales, finance, marketing, and operations to sit in a room, look at the exact same data, and agree on a unified operating plan.
The ripple effects of that visibility seem profound. When you read into the case studies in the source material, the tangible benefits hit the supply chain almost immediately.
They really do.
You get more stable production rates, which means you aren't paying exorbitant overtime one week and then,
Right.
Sending factory workers home the next.
Exactly. You get improved inventory management, drastically shorter lead times for your make-to-order customers.
And even new product introductions get better, right?
Absolutely. If you have S&OP, launching a new product is a highly controlled, synchronized event. Engineering, marketing, and production all ramp up at the exact same pace. Reduced obsolescence across the board.
Okay, but I have to push back here for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
The seesaw is a great metaphor for a static environment,
Okay.
but in reality, demand is incredibly erratic. Supply chains get disrupted by global events. A seesaw is perfectly balanced right up until, a massive elephant suddenly drops out of the sky onto one side of it.
Right.
how does a principle like balance actually hold up when market conditions change literally overnight?
That is the core challenge every executive faces. And honestly, it points to a common misunderstanding of what S&OP actually provides. S&OP is not a static scale that you set once a year and just walk away from.
Okay.
It's a highly dynamic, monthly recalibration system. Because it creates that constant enterprise-wide visibility, its ultimate value isn't achieving this permanent, perfect equilibrium.
Then what is it?
Its true value is giving your organization the agility to react quickly to those exact market changes.
So if the elephant jumps on the seesaw, S&OP ensures that everyone from the CEO down to the shift supervisor sees the elephant at the exact same moment.
Yes. And because they see it together, they can coordinate how to shift their weight to compensate rather than everyone just panicking individually.
Okay, I love that. So if S&OP gives an organization this incredible agility, how does that reaction actually reach the factory floor? Like, the CEO can't just run downstairs in a suit and start shouting new assembly instructions at the line workers. There has to be some kind of translation layer.
There absolutely does. And this brings us to the linkages between S&OP and strategic plans. S&OP doesn't exist in a vacuum. It acts as the vital cartilage connecting the executive boardroom to the tactical supply chain.
Okay, lay out the hierarchy for us.
So, at the very top of the corporate hierarchy, you have strategic and business planning. This is where the executive board speaks in the language of total dollars and overarching growth targets.
Like, we need to hit $50 million in revenue this year.
Exactly.
Right.
But you can't hand a revenue target to a factory worker. You can't just say, hey, please assemble $3,000 worth of value today. It means nothing to them.
Right.
So S&OP takes those total dollars from the business plan and translates them into physical units. But, and this is a really critical distinction, it translates them into aggregate product families, not individual items. This is what we call volume planning.
Volume S&OP. Got it. So if S&OP handles the volume, what handles the specific items?
That falls one level down the hierarchy to master scheduling. Master scheduling handles the product mix. It takes the aggregate volume authorized by S&OP and disaggregates it into a specific schedule of end items.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm mapping this translation layer correctly.
Go for it.
Imagine you're running a large Italian restaurant. The business plan is the strategic decision to open the restaurant and hit $1 million in sales. The S&OP level is the manager looking at that target and deciding, okay, to hit those financials, we need to serve 500 pasta dishes this week. That's the volume.
Follow you.
Then the master scheduler is the head chef in the kitchen. They handle the mix. They figure out exactly how many specific spaghetti dishes versus penny dishes they need to fire up on a Tuesday night to hit that 500 dish target.
That's perfect. And if we push that restaurant analogy a step further, the critical rule of this hierarchy is that your master scheduler in the kitchen cannot go rogue. The planned master production schedule quantities must completely agree with the S&OP product family volume. If S&OP authorizes the resources and ingredients for 500 pasta dishes, the head chef can't suddenly decide to schedule 800.
Because they'd run out of food.
Exactly.
Okay.
The kitchen completely runs out of capacity. They run out of stove space, pans, line cooks, everything.
Okay, speaking of capacity, this is where the source text gets heavily technical. When you look at how companies plan for capacity, there is an entire alphabet soup of supply-side activities.
Oh, yeah. RP, RCCP, CRP.
Right. You have resource planning, or RP. You have rough cut capacity planning, RCCP.
Yeah.
And you have capacity requirements planning, CRP. I have to admit, it gets confusing trying to figure out exactly where S&OP shakes hands with actual factory capacity among all those acronyms.
The confusion usually stems from the fact that capacity is evaluated at multiple stages. It's a staggered hierarchy based on lead times.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So S&OP links directly and horizontally to resource planning, or RP. This is the macro level. Sure. Resource planning evaluates the absolute longest lead time resources. We're talking about physical factory buildings, massive stamping presses, or specialized labor forces that take months to hire and train.
So S&OP secures the major macro resources.
Yes. Then, one level down, the master schedule links to rough cut capacity planning, or RCCP. This checks medium-range capacity constraints.
Got it.
And finally, at the very bottom, material requirements planning links to capacity requirements planning, or CRP, which checks the micro day-to-day work center loads.
Wait, why not just check all the capacity requirements at once at the very end? Why spread it out across 3 different levels?
Lead times dictate everything. Consider an automotive plant. S&OP links to resource planning so the executives can approve the capital to build a brand new factory building today.
Okay.
A year later, when the factory is actually built, the master scheduler uses rough cut capacity planning to ensure the robotic welding arms aren't double booked for the new sedan model.
Ah, I see.
And finally, down at the daily execution level, CRP ensures there are enough literal drill bits and shift workers on line 4 next Tuesday. S&OP has to secure the macro capacity years in advance, so the micro execution is even possible.
That is a massive light bulb moment. If S&OP doesn't approve the factory bundling, the shift worker next Tuesday has nowhere to show up.
Exactly. And that exact same horizontal linkage applies to the demand side. When the S&OP team sits down to plan, they aren't just guessing what customer demand will be. They pull hard data rolling up from forecasting and distribution requirements planning, or DRP, so they are always working with real aggregate numbers.
Okay, so we have the hierarchy in place. The boardroom is officially connected to the kitchen. But how does a massive enterprise actually run this process month to month without it just, descending into a chaotic interdepartmental shouting match?
They rely on a rigorously structured sequence. When you look at how the best companies execute this, they follow a strict, non-negotiable, 5-step S&OP roadmap every single month.
Walk us through what that actually looks like for the people in the room.
Okay, step 1 is the product review. This is where cross-functional teams analyze past performance and review any new product development plans.
Yes, simple enough.
Step 2 is demand planning. This is where you evaluate the total market demand. Then step 3 is supply planning, where operations assesses their physical capability to meet that demand. Step 4 is the pre-meeting or financial review. And finally, step 5 is the executive meeting, where leadership resolves any conflicts and signs off on the official operating plan.
Wait, hold on. I'm looking at step 4, the financial review. Why is the budget check pushed all the way to the end of the process? Like, if the company only has $10 million to spend, why are we spending 3 steps planning a $20 million operation? Shouldn't the budget dictate the plan from step 1?
That is a brilliant question, and it highlights a trap that countless companies fall into. If you start with the budget at step 1, you artificially constrain your view of reality.
How do you mean?
S&OP requires you to understand the true, unconstrained market demand first. In step 2, you're asking, what does the market actually want to buy from us, regardless of what we can afford to make?
Okay.
Then in step 3, you evaluate your actual physical supply capabilities.
Yeah.
What can our machines physically produce before they break down? Only after you have established the physical reality of the market and your factory floor do you introduce the financials in step 4.
Because if you start by staring at the budget, you might intentionally blind yourself to a massive surge in market demand just because you assumed you couldn't afford to service it.
Exactly. Or you might blind yourself to a catastrophic physical constraint in your supply chain because the spreadsheet says you have the money to build something you physically cannot.
Oh, wow.
The financial review at step 4 exists to monetize the physical plan. It reconciles the gap between the operational reality you discovered in steps 2 and 3 and the strategic business plan you started the year with. If you lead with finance, you aren't doing sales and operations planning, you're just doing budget compliance.
That completely reframes the purpose of the entire exercise. It's a physical reality check before it's a financial check. And I imagine the inputs for that reality check change depending on what kind of company you're running.
Drastically. A make-to-stock company, like, say, a manufacturer producing millions of AA batteries.
Right, MTS?
Right. They rely heavily on statistical demand forecasts during step 2. Because they build inventory before the customer ever orders it.
Makes sense.
But an engineer-to-order environment, an ETO, like a company building massive custom bridge cranes, they run a totally different S&OP process. They input project schedules, custom engineering capacity, and specific customer design specs. The inputs change, but the rigorous 5-step sequence remains identical.
That structure is fascinating. It keeps everyone grounded. But, once you have that unconstrained reality laid out on the table, you have to actually make decisions. And you can't have an executive team reviewing every single item the company sells.
No, absolutely not.
Which brings us to integrating and balancing the roles of S&OP. To make this work, companies establish strict parameters.
Without parameters, you just have analysis paralysis.
Exactly. And one of the biggest parameters is the planning horizon. The source mentions the ideal S&OP horizon looks out 18 months, with the minimum requirement matching the length of your annual business plan.
Yes, 18 months is standard.
But crucially, S&OP plans and synchronizes supply and demand at the product family level, not the end item level. The sweet spot is generally agreed to be between 6 and 12 logical product families.
And the reason for keeping it to 6 to 12 families is entirely about cognitive load and strategic focus. I mean, you can't have a productive executive meeting if the CEO is trying to review 5,000 individual SKUs.
Right. Imagine you're running a massive regional brewery. You don't ask your S&OP team to forecast exactly how many 12-ounce cans versus 16-ounce glass bottles of IPA you're going to sell 18 months from now. That level of detail is just madness.
Complete madness.
You just forecast that you need the capacity to brew 10,000 gallons of IPA liquid. The IPA vat is your product family. As long as S&OP secures the ingredients and the vat capacity for the liquid, the master scheduler can figure out how to package it into specific cans or bottles, a few weeks before delivery.
The brewery is an excellent metaphor because it really highlights capacity.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, this is also where integration creates friction. Marketing and sales view the world very differently than manufacturing does.
Where do they clash?
Well, marketing views a product line based on who buys it. They might group products into summer seasonal ales versus winter stouts. That categorization helps them sell.
Okay.
But manufacturing groups products into families based on how they're physically made, like which vats they use or which bottling lines they require.
Oh, I see.
To manufacturing, a summer ale and a winter stout might run through the exact same filtration machine, meaning they consume the same capacity. So to them, they're the same product family.
So how do you integrate those conflicting views? Marketing is speaking one language and manufacturing is speaking another.
S&OP serves as the universal translator. You find the common ground using aligned measurements. Marketing might project demand in total cases sold per region, but the S&OP process translates that into direct labor hours or machine utilization rates for manufacturing.
So what happens when that translation reveals a massive problem? Like, let's say you have your 5-step process running smoothly, you're looking 18 months out at your 6 to 12 product families, and suddenly the CEO bursts into the room.
Uh-oh.
They announce a massive surprise marketing push for next month. Sales is thrilled. But manufacturing looks at the translation and realizes the required capacity will completely bankrupt the company in overtime labor costs. How does S&OP resolve that standoff?
It resolves it because S&OP is fundamentally a forum for making difficult trade-offs. When the CEO demands the marketing push, the operations team doesn't just sit there and complain.
Right.
They bring objective data. They can say, we can absolutely execute that marketing push. However, our resource planning shows we will hit a critical capacity bottleneck on our main production line in 3 weeks. To push through it, we will incur a 20% penalty in overtime labor. Does the anticipated revenue from your marketing push offset this specific overtime penalty?
Wow. It removes the emotion and the office politics entirely. You're no longer arguing about who works harder. You're making a mathematical trade-off.
Precisely. It forces cross-functional alignment. The executive team has to look at the data and decide if the action benefits the total enterprise, rather than just letting sales win at the expense of manufacturing's budget. It makes the invisible friction totally visible.
Let's synthesize this journey for everyone listening. If you want to understand how massive global enterprises manage to avoid collapsing under their own weight, the answer is sales and operations planning.
Absolutely.
It's the vital cartilage connecting lofty boardroom strategy to gritty factory floor execution. By moving through a rigid 5-step sequence every single month, looking 18 months into the future, and grouping complex realities into manageable product families, a company can finally align its financial ambitions with its physical limitations.
Beautifully summarized.
S&OP secures the micro resources so the micro daily execution is even possible, giving the entire organization the agility to react to a constantly shifting world.
It is an incredibly powerful framework when executed correctly. But, as we wrap up, there's an important question for you to ponder regarding its vulnerabilities.
Oh.
S&OP is an elegant balancing act, but it relies heavily on analyzing historical data, maintaining stable 18-month horizons, and carefully defining your physical product families.
Right, the gallons of IPA in the brewery.
Yes. But what happens to this carefully balanced framework when an unprecedented global technological disruption occurs? A disruption that instantly renders your historically defined product families completely obsolete overnight.
Oh, wow.
How must an organization's S&OP process evolve to balance supply and demand when the very definition of what they are selling radically changes before that 18-month horizon even begins?
A completely new kind of elephant crashing onto the seesaw.
Exactly.
That is definitely something for you to chew on next time you're looking at an 18-month forecast. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.